The Amazon, the green heart of South America, the largest rainforest in the world. These verdant riches hold the key to humanity itself by breathing life into the entire planet.
Shalom, this is Shamari One, and tonight's topic is we're going to talk about the 10 tribes of Israel who were in the Americas long before Christopher Columbus. And we're going to utilize the scriptures and the lost tribes and promised lands, which you brothers and sisters should have in your libraries. We're going to use the history of James Adair, and we're going to talk about Gunnar Thompson, who is an anthropologist. Okay, and anthropology is the study of mankind. And so we're just going to go through here. We're going to go through some of the things that we have here, and we're going to start off with Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. And it reads, "And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all by Hashem HaMashiach Yahushai, giving thanks to the Abanawa Yahweh by Hashem HaMashiach Yahushai, by Him. All praises to the Heavenly Father." And so what we're going to do is, I want to go to James Adair, in the book of James Adair. This book now was written about in the 1700s, but it was published in 1930. It's called The History of the American Indians, James Adair. Again, it was published around 1930, but this scholar actually dwelt with the Native Americans in the 16 and 1700s, I believe. And so where we're going to go first is, in this book, we're going to go to page, let's see, what page do we want? In this book, we're going to go to page 106. Page 106. And a lot of brothers and sisters don't realize that this land that we call America, which means America, which also means in the Hebrew language, bitter waters, that it was talked about long before. And on page 106 in James Adair, I'm going to read the second paragraph. Okay. And it's actually the third paragraph, and it reads something like this: "Shel and Shetera signify to carry, Shapor, a load." It's talking about how the Native Americans here in the Americas actually used the ancient Hebrew language, and the dialects were all Aboriginal. The former word consists of Sha'ath and Ayah. Ayah imports dead, and Kana, lost. They say Sha Kana, to carry a thing quite away, or to Canaan. Alright, so the Native Americans back in those days was calling this place Canaan, America. It reads, likewise, Ala Kanaha, literally dead and lost, or probably gone to Canaan. These are the terms that they called this place that they were dwelling in: dead, lost, and gone to Canaan. So it says several old Indian American towns are called Canaan or Canaan, and it hath been a prevailing notion with many Jews that when any of their people died in a strange land, they passed through the caverns of the earth till they arrived at Canaan, their attractive center. And the word Oabe likewise imports dead or cut off by, Oa or Yahweh, for they firmly believe, as before hinted, they cannot outlive the time the deity has prescribed them. So they literally called America Canaan, and they called it the land of the dead. this place called America, North, Central, and South America. It was known as Canaan. So this is the land of Canaan. A lot of brothers want to say our seraph. Well, the scriptures reads in the Apocrypha that it's our seraph. But when we go into 1 Kings, it talks about that this place was visited by Solomon's navy. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22. And it reads, "For the king had a seat of navy of Tarshish." That's in the land of Canaan, which is also area where Spain also dwelt, right above the water of Tyre. It says, "with the navy of Hiram." Hiram was a king that King David loved, who later on, his son Solomon also made him a friend of his. It says, "once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks." Now, peacocks, when you hear that, America had turkeys who also resemble peacocks. And if you look at this guy that we were just talking about, Gunnar Thompson, he did a study on this. This anthropologist did a study on how a lot of these turkeys ended up in North Europe. And
They say the past is the key to the future. Well, if that's true, then you'll find the keys to the future right here at the Atlantic Conference on Blog Talk Radio on October the 10th. Hello, welcome to the program. My name is Gunnar Thompson. I will be your host on October 10th as the Time Detectives take you on an adventure through the ages. We will solve one of the greatest mysteries of the past. One reason why the Europeans called maize by the name of turkey corn is because they already had turkeys. The turkey, as you may know, is a New World food plant. The Europeans fed maize to the turkeys, that's why they called it turkey corn. And that was long before Columbus.
in Egypt and in parts of Jerusalem, these turkeys. Over here on the West Coast, you go into some of these rural areas and you see just a foliage of all these different turkeys. They're wild turkeys. They'll be crossing the street like cattle. And you have to stop your car just to let them go by. Just wild turkeys. So that's nothing new for this country. There's always been turkeys here. It says, now, once in 3 years came the navy to. Now, when you go into 2nd Ezra chapter 13, it talks about that. It took the 10 tribes at least a year and a half to come to the Americas by ship. So when Solomon is referring to it took them once in 3 years came the navy to Tarshish bringing gold and silver, that meant a year and a half plus another year and a half is 3 years. So to get here it took a year and a half, and to get back it took another year and a half. You're talking about these men of Tarshish that dwelt in the land of Tyre or Canaan. They were known for being sea merchants. This is what they did. They had long been going through the Mediterranean over to the through the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas long before Christopher Columbus ever even thought about it, long before he was even born. There was traffic going to and fro. So this was the land of Canaan. And when we look at this anthropologist, this guy named Gunnar Thompson, this guy tried to tell all the scholars that Christopher Columbus was not the one who discovered America. Now this is a so-called white man, an Edomite. He was going to all these different scholars telling them that their history was wrong. Okay, because he did the research. He did 30 years worth of research and came to the conclusion that this place was not founded by the so-called white man.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into these secret voyages and in missions like that.
I've been studying ancient voyages to America for about the last 30 years or so. When I got into anthropology back at the University of Wisconsin in the late 1960s, early 1970s, Thor Heyerdahl was sailing primitive Egyptian reed boats across the Atlantic Ocean to prove that the Egyptians could have sailed across the Atlantic before Columbus. And that got me interested in the subject, and subsequently in various universities I've gone through every book I could find in the libraries looking for all the information that I can, and I've come across tremendous numbers of artifacts, plant dispersals, what's generally referred to as diffusion of artifacts and culture across the oceans before Columbus for every ancient maritime civilization. So it's become absolutely mind-boggling to me that I live in an advanced technological society such as the United States of America, where they still teach in school that there was no significant explorers before Columbus, and we're still celebrating Discovery Day.
Is it because they just don't care, or are they sweeping it under the carpet on purpose? What's their rationale for this?
Well, actually, they very much care. They don't want this stuff to happen. There's a partly there's a conspiracy of ignorance, partly there's a conspiracy of dogma. All your educators, particularly your college tenured professors, go through a training program which selects out those that don't believe from those who believe, and those who believe in the dogma that's presented are promoted into positions in the universities. Now, most of these people aren't. They see themselves as scientists. They aren't deliberately anti-new evidence, but the environment that they're brought up in teaches them to condemn any new evidence as a hoax or a fraud. And so the result is that even though the new evidence is brought forth by maverick scholars such as myself, Glenn Kimball, Tor Heyerdahl, Betty Meggers, and so on, the stuff is pushed aside, is pushed under the carpet, it's condemned. Many of us have written articles, and they don't get into journals because there's gatekeepers that make sure that new information is kept out. So it's actually a conspiracy.
He knew that these universities teach nothing but dogmas. Now, when you look at the definition of dogma is like an opinion. It's a doctrine or a belief. It's a body of theological doctrines. When you look at the Webster's Dictionary, this is how it breaks it down. So it's a body of theological doctrines. What is theology? The study of God and religions. All right? It's a form of doctrines. So dogma is what? About a bunch of religions and doctrines. So he said that all the things that universities are teaching are dogmas. Christianity, Catholicism, all this is dogmas. The Most High never taught that. He taught keeping the law, statutes, commandments, following the Most High, and following His Son, Hamashiach Yahushua. That's all He taught. Don't you know that they're trying to hide this truth from y'all? They've been trying to do it forever. Ever since they've been in power, they've been trying to keep this truth away from you. They beat it out of your parents, so they don't remember, so they couldn't teach you. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 29, verse 15. Isaiah 29, verse 15. It reads, "Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Most High, and the works are in the dark. And they say, Who seeth us? And who knoweth us?" They hurt you from not even being in your sight. They be hiding in the darkness. You never see them, but they hurting you some kind of way. "Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, He made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, He had no understanding?" All right, so the Most High is going to deal with this. All these devils, all they want to do is keep the truth away from us. Their time is up, man. Their time is up. This truth is coming out. Let's go to Job chapter 14. The book of Job. Job chapter 14, verse 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So their time is up. They can't go too much farther. He only going to let them go so far, and that's it. Their time is up. That's the way the Most High deals with countries and nations and principalities. But we have been set up to wake up the 12 tribes of Israel. That's our job. And to condemn all these countries who took us into captivity. That's our whole job in our makeup right now. That's what we're supposed to be doing. because who else is going to do it? All these presidents been bought and paid for. They're just a name on paper, most of these presidents. You look at some of the stuff going on today, you can't believe what's being said out of some of these people's mouths that are running for office. They're just saying, it's so blatant. They just say whatever now. They don't care. Did y'all see what President Trump did to the president of Turkey? He wrote a letter. He basically called the man, well, he did call him in the letter. He called him an idiot. Now, does that sound like a president that was elected by the people? That's who's representing this country. Let's go to Hosea chapter 6. Hosea chapter 6, verse 5. Therefore have I showed them by the prophets, I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and thy judgments are as the light that goeth forth. See that? So we don't care about none of y'all that can't get it at this point. Those of you who can, stay beloved. Those who can't, y'all better hurry up and jump on board, or we just gonna forget y'all. The truth is tick-tocking on all these heathen and all these Israelites that don't believe. The truth is tick-tocking right now. All right? The Rothschilds and the super rich don't understand this. If they did, they'd be coming down. They'd be coming to us right now, bowing down, just like the scriptures say. But they don't get this. If you look at Isaiah 49:23, it tells you. Isaiah 49:23. And kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am the Most High, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Who's ashamed right now? Our people. We're waiting though. We're trying not to be ashamed anymore because we're coming into this truth. That's what we're doing. So when you look at the Phoenicians, aka the Canaanites, they knew that America was the land of the Canaanites. They already knew. This is the place that they discovered. Okay? Israel already knew about the Americas too. Like I was saying, Hiram was bringing peacocks and monkeys back to who? King Solomon.
Well, exactly, and it's really difficult to see America as an advanced modern society when you go through an educational program where, when you come up with evidence that doesn't agree with the existing paradigm or the status quo, that you're shunned aside, you're told to go elsewhere. I got straight A's in anthropology as an undergrad, and then when I went to the graduate school at the University of Wisconsin, they told me that I wasn't suitable for their program. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Let's go back in the book of James Adair, page 125. James Adair, page 125. And let's read the last paragraph here. And I'm going to read it. It says, till the 70 years captivity commenced, the Israelites had only numeral names for the solar and lunar months, except Abib, okay, which is the month of March, and Nisan. The former signifies a green ear of corn, so that's what Abib is known for. March comes, that's the beginning of spring. That's the new year. An ear of corn is symbolizing that there's new growth. And the latter, robust or valiant. And by the first name, the Indians, as an explicitive, termed their Passover. So that's when Passover is supposed to come. Okay, roughly around March, April. It says, which the trading people called the green corn dance. As the Israelites were a sensual people and generally understood nothing but the shadow or literal part of the law. What law? It's just like we read in 2nd Ezra. Let's go to 2nd Ezra real quick and we'll come right back. 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Let's go up to verse 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea, the king, who Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and carried them over the waters. And so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt. Now where is that? That's the land of Canaan. Okay? That's America, or bitter waters. That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So they kept partial. They kept partial laws, partial statutes and commandments when they came here. They didn't keep them all. That's why they went off. So when we read this in James Adair, let's go back to James Adair, page 125. It says, going down to where we left off at, or a literal part of the law. They only kept part of the law. They didn't keep all the law when they came over here. So the Indians closely imitate them, minding only that traditional part which promised them a delicious land, flowing with milk and honey. The 2 Israelite months just mentioned were equinoctial. Abib, or the present Nisan, was the 7th of the civil and the 1st of the ecclesiastical year, answering to our March and April. Okay, so that's around the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Ethanim, which is another month, which began the silver year, was the 7th of that of the ecclesiastical, the same as our September and our October. And the Indians named the various seasons of the year from the planting or ripening of the fruits. So this is why we have our blowing of the trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles, which we are now in this moment. Okay, because this was a law that we were supposed to keep. But now the laws have been drowned out, because a lot of the natives here were keeping partial laws. They weren't keeping the whole law. They started to dwindle off. Now they're keeping heathen customs. And the people of this land is keeping heathen customs. But before it was not so. They were ancient people. They were keeping ancient customs of the Israelites. Okay? So when you look at these guys like Gunnar Thompson, this is what he was studying as well. He was trying to figure out, how did this coin end up way over here from Rome in the Americas? How did this drachus, or this denarius coin, end up over down in Tennessee or in Chicago, what we call Chicago nowadays? Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 9. 1 Kings chapter 9. Because a lot of people, they underestimate Solomon. Solomon was a wise man. When we read that, it said his navy. Now, a navy is not just one ship. A navy is a fleet of ships. So when these men were coming over here, they didn't come with one ship. Like we read, they was getting monkeys and peacocks, and they were taking it back to Solomon. They had everything over here. This is like the Garden of Eden. All right, so let's go to 1 Kings chapter 9, and it reads, And it came to pass, when Solomon had finished the building of the house of the Most High, and the king's house, which was his house, and all Solomon's desire which he was pleased to do, that the Most High appeared to Solomon the second time, as he appeared unto him at Gibeon. And the Most High said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and the supplication that thou hast made before me. I have hallowed this house which thou hast built, to put my name there forever. And mine eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. And if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and will keep my statutes and my judgments, then I will establish the throne of the kingdom upon Israel forever. as promised to David thy father, saying, There shall not fail thee a man upon the throne of Yasharallah. But if you shall at all turn from following me, you or your children, and will not keep my commandments and statutes which I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them. That's why the 10 tribes went into captivity. That's why they were scattered to all corners of the earth. And this house which I have hallowed for my name will I cast out of my sight, and Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. And at this house which is high, everyone that passeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss, and they shall say, Why hath the Most High done thus unto this land? You see that land today is just desolate. You got brothers over there right now keeping the tabernacles, and they're showing all the world what they're seeing. And it's a desolate place. It ain't changed. Esau's over there trying to make it an oasis, but it's just a little corner piece of the land. The Most High said all that land is going to flourish when he returns and puts the real children of Israel back in that land. Okay? It won't be desolate. It says, and to this house. Check this out. And they shall answer because they forsook the Most High their power, who brought forth their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and have taken hold upon other gods. Now, when we was in Egypt, when we left and went into the wilderness, mind you, we was lost 40 years. 40 years lost. How can you be lost for 40 years? We were lost. In this land, we're lost. We've been lost here 400 years. We done lost our doggone minds for 400 years. And it's still going. Time is still ticking. Brothers still lost. All around the earth, our people are lost. We up here laughing, oh, they was going in the wilderness 40 years. We worse than them. We've been here without our power. It says, therefore hath the Most High brought upon them all this evil. The Most High brought it upon you because you hated the Most High. Like the scripture says in Exodus chapter 20. Let's go there. Look at this. You don't think you hated the Most High? You hated the Most High. Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. It says, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. What them? The other gods, or the religions, nor serve them. For I, the Most High Yahweh, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. The third and fourth generation that hate me. How do you hate them? Not keeping his laws. That's what he meant. Then he says, and showing mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and keep my... That don't sound like millions or billions. He said to the thousands. That's a very small number. Thousands. So the Most High ain't playing. That's why he said in 1 Kings chapter 9, he says, therefore hath the Most High brought upon them all this evil. Because why? They hated the Most High. Now when we flash back, we see how much Solomon actually loved the Most High in his youth. It says here in verse 10, and it came to pass at the end of 20 years, when Solomon had built the two houses, the house of the Most High and the king's house. Now it took Solomon and his men, the Israelites, who were over the heathens, it took 13 years to build the Most High's house and 7 years to build Solomon's house. That's a long time to build a house. Can you imagine how explicit, how perfect, how splendid that house looked? Can you imagine? Queen of Sheba came up there looking for the wisdom of Solomon. Couldn't believe the doorman, what the doorman looked like. She thought that was King Solomon standing at the door. You know? So we got to understand, man, the Most High takes his time and does certain things. So if he said that the children would be scattered, guess what? They were scattered. All right. Let's read verse 11. Now Hiram, the king of Tyre, all right, where was Tyre? If you look at a map, Tyre was right there in the land of Canaan. Okay, it encompassed almost to where the Israelites were, all the way into Africa. It moved, like the border started to shrink. It says, Hiram the king of Tyre had furnished Solomon with cedar trees and fir trees, and with gold according to all his desire. That then Solomon gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. And Hiram came out from Tyre to see the cities which Solomon had given him. And they pleased him not. And he said, What cities are these which thou hast given me, my brother? And he called them the land of Cubal unto this day. And Hiram sent to the king 60 talents. See that? Jump over to verse 27. So all these cities were given, to Solomon. And Solomon gave them to whoever he wished. Let's go to verse 26. It says, And the king Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea, in the land of Edom. Okay, so this was in the land of Edom. Why? Because we conquered the Edomites. We conquered them. If you go to 2 Samuel chapter 8, 2 Samuel chapter 8, and let's go to verse 14, and look at what King David did to the Edomites. It says, let's start at 13. And David got him a name when he returned from smiting of the Syrians in the valley of Salt, being 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom put he garrisons, and all they of Edom became David's servants. He had them in captivity. They were heathens. And the Most High preserved David whithersoever he went. And David reigned over all Israel, and David executed judgment and justice unto all his people. So these are the Edomites who wanted to dwell with King David. These weren't the Edomites who resisted King David. These are the Edomites who are welcome, who are willing to change their ways to follow the Israelites. And they were under the thumb of the Israelites. How do we know that? Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 19. Let's drop down to verse 20. It says, And all the people that were left of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and Jebusites, which were not of the children of Israel, these are all the heathens, their children that were left after them in the land. Why was their children left in the land? Because the rest of them were killed off, because King David executed all those who didn't want to bend their head. Their children that were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able utterly to destroy. See that? Upon those did Solomon levy a tribute of bondservants unto this day. They were all slaves. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no slave man, but they were men of war, and all his servants, and his princes, and his captains, and rulers of his chariots, and his horsemen. See that? Let's jump back up to 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 27. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. So Israelites were also dwelling with Hiram's men. Canaanites, they were dwelling with him. And they came to Ophir and fetched from thence gold 420 talents and brought it to King Solomon. See that? This is how the 10 tribes knew. This is why they knew about the Americas, the land of Canaan. They got away from it. That's why you have to read, man. You just can't just Google everything. You got to read a little bit. Broaden your horizons. You know? I want to go to, I want to show you something. What page is that? I'm looking for it right now. Slack here. Let's go to page, let's go into the scriptures, Isaiah 19. So if America was known as a dead place or bitter waters or the land of Canaan, this verse will make more sense to you now. The book of Isaiah, chapter 19. So, you know, this truth is coming out. So, I mean, you know, these different scholars are starting to recognize that. Isaiah chapter 19, verse 18. Isaiah chapter 19, verse 18. It reads, "In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan, and swear to the Most High of hosts. One shall be called the city of destruction." So you see, this is saying that 5 cities in the land of Egypt. Now, this place is called spiritually Egypt and spiritually Sodom as well. America. So if it's spiritually called Egypt, guess what we speaking? We're speaking languages of Canaan. That's what we have to understand. This land is the land of the dead. All the stuff Esau knows is old science too. You know what I mean? It's old science. The old world already knew all these things. They already knew all these mysteries. The old world already knew it. So this ain't nothing new. It's just that Esau just finding out about it. Esau likes to hide stuff. He teaches a bunch of BS. That's Esau. He ain't trying to teach you the truth. The people of North, Central, and South America originally are the lost tribes of Israel. They're the Israelites. Solomon already had all this knowledge. He already knew about all these different ways the earth worked. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, and let's read verse 17. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and 17, it reads, "For he have given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely, to know how the world was made, and the operation of the elements." Solomon already knew how the sun and the moon, he already knew all that. All these things were passed down from one generation to the next. Don't you know they had the books of Moses? And Moses has seen the beginning of times and the end of times. Verse 18, the beginning, ending, and midst of the time. See that? You don't believe what Moses? Moses saw the beginning of times and the end of times. You go into 2nd Ezra, chapter 14, it reads, "And it came to pass upon the 3rd day, I sat under an oak, and behold, there came a voice out of a bush over against me, and said, Esdras, Esdras. And I said, Here I am, my Lord. And I stood up upon my feet. Then said he unto me, In the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talk with him, when my people served in Egypt. And I sent him, and led my people out of Egypt, and brought him up to the mount of Sinai, where I held him by me a long season, and told him many wondrous things, and showed him the secret of the times and the end, and commanded him, saying, These words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide." You see that? So who did he hide that stuff for? For the kings of Israel, for the prophets of Israel. That's why when we go back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 18, it says, the beginning, ending, and midst of the times. He showed Solomon this stuff too. The alterations of the turning of the sun and the change of seasons. Okay, this is what they were talking about in the book of James Adair. They called the sun a certain thing. What did they call the sun? I was just reading that a minute ago. All right, so when we read this in the Wisdom of Solomon, verse 20, it says, 19, it says, the circuits of years and the positions of stars, the natures of living creatures, and the furies of wild beasts. How do you think they was able to contain these beasts and take them back to Solomon? Solomon already warned them, hey, when you're dealing with this type of animal, this is how you got to catch it. This is what you have to do to capture this animal. He already knew. He just gave them instructions. You think Canaanites knew how to deal with all that stuff? They didn't. That's why they loved Solomon. Solomon would probably sit down and have men all around him, and he'd just be talking, telling them different things that they never heard before. The violence of winds and the reasonings of men, the diversities of plants and the virtues of roots, and all such things as are either secret or manifest, them I know. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me. For in her is an understanding spirit, holy, one only, manifold, subtle, just like we just read about the Native American Indians. They're very subtle. Lively, clear, undefiled, plain, not subject to hurt, loving the thing that is good, quick, which cannot be letted, ready to do good, kind to man, steadfast, sure, free from care. Why do you think it was peace for 40 years? Solomon had all the understanding of how to deal with mankind. This is having all power, overseeing all things, and going through all understanding, pure and most subtle spirits. For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passeth and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. For she is the breath of the power of the Most High, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. Why do you think he knew all these things? He was the king of Israel for a reason. So when we go back to this man named Gunnar Thompson, this Anthony King 17 verse 1, and it reads. So first, 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 1. 2 Kings 17 verse 1, and it reads. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Most High, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, like we read in Second Ezra. And Hosea became his servant and gave him presents. Who do you think he gave? What do you think he gave as presents? It was us. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hosea, for he had sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria. They were carried captives, and placed them in Halah and in Habar by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, Persians and the Medes, which was another kingdom. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Most High, their power, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Most High thy power cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. See, our people went off. That's what our people are doing over here right now. Worshipping other gods, other dogmas. Y'all got to understand, it's all about the Most High, and it's all about His people, Yasharala. That's why they're trying to control the internet right now. That's why they're trying to control it. Y'all know what the internet stands for. When you type something in, what do you type? www, right? That www stands for the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web. That's what it's saying. So they're trying to control it. Some people think everything is on the internet. Everything is not on the internet. Everything is not on Google. Psalms chapter 83. Psalms 83 verse 4. They have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." That's what's going on now. This is why people don't know who they are. Because of this verse right here. It says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Israel don't put their head in this book. A lot of Israelites of Negro and Native American Indian descent say stupid things like, "You live your whole life off that little book. Why don't you just live your life?" Now that's stupid in itself. Because if you live your life, you be in straight evil. You'll be walking around with blinders on in Quasar somewhere. But to live your life after the men of the Most High that's in this book, it's everlasting life. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 17. Let's go back to where we were. 2 Kings chapter 17, and let's start back at verse 8. Let's read that again. 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 8. "And walked in the statutes of the heathen." This is what our people do. We walk in the statutes of the heathen. We believe everything they say. On Netflix, that particular program just floods your mind with all kinds of just ignorance. On Netflix. "And walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Most High cast out from before the children of Israel." See, when they're around us, they afflict us. "And of the kings of Israel, which they had made." Go to Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel chapter 37, and let's read verse 5. Ezekiel 37 verse 5. "Thus saith the Most High of hosts unto these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live." What's the truth? What's the breath? The breath is this knowledge. The law, statutes, and commandments. This is knowledge of understanding of following the prophets and the Most High and His Son, Hamashiach Yahushua. "And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin." That skin is your nationality. "And put breath in you, and ye shall live, and ye shall know that I am the power." So when you read that, a lot of people read this and don't understand what that skin is. The skin is your nationality. The breath is the knowledge of the law, statutes, and commandments. In the Hamashiach Yahushua. Go to 2 Kings 17. Second Kings chapter 17, verse 12. "For they served idols, whereof the Most High has said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Most High testified against Israel, against Judah, by all the prophets, and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways." See that? That's the truth. "And keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants, the prophets." See that? That's what we're supposed to do. "Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in the Most High their power, and they rejected His statutes and His covenant that He made with their fathers, and His testimony which He testified." That's why we went into captivity, right there. That's why we ended up way over here in the land of Canaan, in the wilderness. walking around in circles. That's why we ended up here. And now we got to listen to men like this so-called Edomite, this Edomite here, Gunner Thompson, just to trigger your mind a little bit on who you are. That all this information out here ain't no good. You got to listen to their so-called scholars just so you can believe what I'm saying to you. Because you don't believe what I'm saying. That we are the Israelites, 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? I'm going to stop right there because there's so much more on this. We could go all day talking about this. But I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to say, Yahweh Ba'Shem HaMashiach Yahushua, all praises to the Heavenly Father.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.